Guys, it's Peggy Kaczynski. I retired early from my 20-something career as a sportscaster, covering the Bulls, the Bears, the Blackhawks, the Cubs, the White Sox, and really every other college and high school team in Chicago. So what do you do after that? Well, you start a podcast. That's what I did with my teenage son, Jason. And the result is The Sportscaster and Her Son. Yes, I'm the baby boomer, a mom. We don't get along. We don't have a lot in common, but we both share a love for sports. And we always have great sports conversation. Even better, our guests in the interviews. So come check us out. We're on Podbean and the Barroom Network, or really wherever you get your audio. The Sportscaster and Her Son podcast. See you there.
Hey everybody, it's Aldo Gandhi, and I just want to let you know really quickly that our swag shop is reopened. DeepDishTees.com is where you go, and that's tees with T-E-E-S. Clever name, guys. They're the new home of our merchandise. You can get t-shirts, you can get caps, you can get coffee mugs, you can get hoodies, you can get all sorts of good stuff, and you'll help out the bar room with the purchase. So head over to DeepDishTees.com.
Going to Wrigley Field was a huge, unforgettable deal that impacted my life.
Well, I think the Cubs winning based upon the gap was one of the biggest championships that have happened in any American sport in a really long time.
The first day that they introduced me, I said, baseball matters on the north side of Chicago. It's one of I love baseball, and I love fan bases where it's important.
Well, I always hated the idea of the Cubs as lovable losers because I don't think there's anything lovable about putting an inferior product in front of baseball fans.
It would be the highlight of my career to see that happen and to get a chance to call it. And it didn't disappoint.
I auditioned for the new kid. His name was Billy Crystal. I don't know whatever happened to him. But I'm on the Chad and Ryan show.
Welcome to Friendly Confines, Extra Innings with Chad Gordon and Ryan Lieber.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to our newest episode of the Friendly Confines Extra Innings. I'm Ryan Lieber. That is Chad Gordon. Chad, happy Monday. How we doing?
Happy Monday. Yeah.
Of the Cubs taking 2 of 3 from the St. Louis Cardinals. Feels good.
It really does. It's a good opportunity as well for an off day because this team has had an opportunity to get a little bit of rest because they've got a long streak that's going to start on Tuesday. But that series, which we're going to dive into in just a bit, that had all the makings of a Cubs Cardinals series. Just an instant classic, and I think we're starting to see a turning of the tide at this point where the Cubs have sneakily shown that they're actually a competitive team in a consistent manner. They've shown a lot of consistency, and this weekend was just fabulous. It was just great to watch, and you've got to love all of the heroics, especially with Cubs Cardinals. It was incidentally, it was the first. I didn't think about this, but it was the first game at Busch Stadium since before COVID because they didn't go there all last year. So, and it kind of felt like watching on ESPN. Kind of felt like normalcy a little bit, which was nice.
Well, and St. Louis is opening up their ballpark for more fans. I think I want to say they're at about 65% now in St. Louis. So you had a good crowd for that Sunday night game of over 20,000 people. So it felt, as you said, like a real baseball game again. And you had the vibe of Cubs fans and Cardinals fans, both in the ballpark, which is very common in Missouri. And of course, it's even, just as common in Chicago when the Cardinals come to the Friendly Confines. So it felt like a Cubs-Cardinals rivalry game, and it was great to see. So as always, Chad and I will bring you some topics. We'll go inning by inning. Chad is in his closet, surrounded by all his Cubs memorabilia.
It doesn't. You know what? It doesn't look like a closet. It doesn't. This is well done. I think this is my COVID project. I thought I did okay. I did okay. It doesn't look like I'm at the display counter at the Container Store. So
I am at the Container.
Is that an elephant? Is that an elephant? What is that?
Yes. So elephants are good luck, apparently. Let me do this. Elephants are good luck. And so my wife is a big fan of elephants. So she prominently displayed that. You can probably tell because to my, what would it be? To my right, is that what that would be? To my right or my left?
It's your hand. You should know where your right hand is.
My right, your left. This is my wife's side. To this side, this is my side of the.
You know what I like? It'll make the divorce so much easier.
That's
everybody. They just keep things separated. Wow, that's well thought out.
She'll be able to pack up in a matter of minutes, and it won't even seem like she was here when it was all said and done. So, Chad, with that, let's start out in the 10th inning. And as we mentioned, the Cubs taking 2 of 3. They've now won 7 of their last 10. And what a game on Sunday night. Javi Baez providing the sparks. The Cubs did have a single runner at second base in 1 through 9. Adam Wainwright pitched unbelievable, but hey, it looked really good to be able to take 2 or 3 on the road from this St. Louis team. And I'm sure you're feeling pretty good about how the Cubs have been looking at least these past 10 games.
I like my boys confident, and this weekend series and the previous series really have been a big confidence builder. And to go into Busch Stadium and to have some high profile games and to compete and to win. I mean, that Friday game, how fun was that? I mean, anytime you can win in Busch Stadium by 9, that's a nice win. That one inning that got away from the Cardinals. And Saturday was, again, just a classic. It's just another opportunity to hate Yadier Molina, just another opportunity to see why he is a Hall of Famer, to see why he is clutch and he is such a Cubs killer. But I feel like, and I know this isn't right, but it felt like it was the first time on Sunday where that extra inning guy on second finally worked out in favor of the Cubs. You know, it was finally, it finally bounced the Cubs way. And really fun fact, I know this isn't related to it, but the last time that the Cubs bullpen actually gave up a run was when there was a guy on second in the extra innings and Craig Kimbrell gave up a bloop. I mean, the bullpen has looked fantastic. The offense is really starting to fire up. And if this is the way the team is going to play throughout the rest of the year, this team is not going to raise a white flag anytime soon.
Well, it's funny. First of all, I thought this was a important series in the sense that, we were talking about how this team was struggling on the road, and they come out, they win 2 of 3 against the Cardinals, who are in first place in the NL Central. Obviously, the way that the NL schedules or the baseball schedules in general are for all teams is you are, heavily dominant against the teams in your own division. And so far, the Cubs have looked decently against, the teams in the NL Central, maybe sans for, a series against the Brewers. But for the most part, I feel like the Cubs look like a team that belong amongst, the Cardinals sort of hierarchy, if you will. And we saw how well they played against the Mets and the Dodgers. And so that is encouraging to see. So look, they got a stretch coming up, and we're going to talk about that later in the show. But at least for now, it made me feel much better to know that not only did they win on the road, but as you mentioned in that game on Friday, where they just absolutely, just hit the ball, just shredded the baseball. It was a great sight to see. So it was at least a sign to see that this team is feeling comfortable and they're moving in the right direction and at least trending upward right now.
Yeah. Well, let's move on to the 11th inning, and it's an interesting question because I've always hated this question because I always think it's too soon. It's still too soon. It's May, so for us to be thinking about that. But it's a good question to ask because a lot of people took that first month of the season and kind of wrote off this team to say they weren't going to perform, and they were definitely going to be unloading talent at the trading deadline. But now, how are you feeling right now as we get close to Memorial Day, that weekend coming up? Are the Cubs going to be buyers or sellers, or are they going to stand pat?
So here's why I like this question, Chad. And if you got a chance to watch the game last night, Buster Olney from ESPN reported that more likely than not, regardless of the situation, Chris Bryant is going to be traded by the deadline. Now, if you're a Cubs fan, you don't want to hear that, especially like you said, this is a team that right now isn't looking to wave the white flag. They're in the middle of a division race with the Cardinals. They're 2 games back. Could potentially be a game and a half back after tonight if the White Sox hold on and beat the Cardinals. So there is lots to look at from this team and say, okay, why wouldn't you hold on to Chris Bryant and at least try to make a run for the postseason? It is going to be probably the most difficult and fascinating question. And I know we talked about this before, to see what happens at the trade deadline, because if the Cubs are in the race, if they're in second place, or if they're even in first place at that moment, Jed Hoyer has to make a decision and say, am I looking at this team short term to win the division and roll the dice in the postseason? Or do I have to look long term and say, look, I just don't think ultimately this team is positioned to win championships, and maybe it's best to trade him now regardless of where we are in the standings. I don't want to see it happen, but I am fascinated to see how it plays out. What about you?
I kind of feel like that's a small market mentality that I think that the Cubs had for many, many years with the Tribune. The Wrigley Field would sell out. They'd make their money. They didn't have to put a competitive team on the field. And so to think in those terms, this is a franchise that you have so few moments where you have a collection of talent like this team does have. And if they are in it, unless there's a reason, unless there's somebody that's definitely going to go and they do believe that another person, the next man up, would be better, I think it'd be very foolish, because it's 2021. Tomorrow is not promised today. And if you are in position to win this division, if you're in the position to make the playoffs, you got to make that run now. If you're gonna win this division titles, I mean, look at the pennants up on the top of Wrigley Field. Not pennants, but the division flags, banners on top of Wrigley Field. There's not a ton of them. Most of them have been in the last few years. And so if you have the opportunity to bring home a Central title, I think you have to make that move. And you don't, go get a big haul for 5 years down the road, because that's really what you would be doing. By moving Chris Bryant, you'd be shoring up the team in 2023-24 if you're lucky with some prospects. And I totally get that there's a necessity to do that. If this team continues to play like they have been playing, if they continue to hit the mark that they've shown, there's no reason that I think Jed makes that move, because that would just be devastating to the fan base. I think that would be a death knell in terms of the very kind of interesting fractured relationship with the Cubs. A really fun fact about the run that the Cubs have been on. I texted you this earlier. In the last 20 games, the Cubs have gone 20 games in a row without losing by more than 1 run. This is a competitive team, guys. This is a really strong competitive team. They're not getting blown out anymore. That Atlanta series is a distant memory. This is a team that I think is primed to make a strong run. We're going to see here in May, June. We're going to see how they do in the next few weeks. And we're still ways away, but I think it'd be foolish to make a move if this team is in spitting distance of a title.
And we're going to get into the 12th inning here, because I think this kind of smooths in very well with what we're about to talk about. Because what have you thought so far, Chad, is the most surprising aspect of this baseball team that we have seen through the first 40 plus games of this year, when you look at this team from a 30,000 foot view?
I think for me, I'm not surprised anymore about where people are offensively, because what did I say about averages? They've really come up, and the batting averages have come up. I mean, most of the core part of this team is above average in hitting. The pitching has been the starting pitching has been interesting, because nobody expected Kyle Hendricks not to be Kyle Hendricks this year, but it's the bullpen. The bullpen is the most surprising piece of it, from Craig Kimbrell, who went from punching bag to one of the most dominant closers since midway of last year. You've got Andrew Chafin, you've got Ryan Tepera, you've got Justin Steele, you got Keegan Thompson, Tommy Nance, you've got Rex Brothers. That bullpen in May is the second lowest ERA in baseball, trailing only the Padres. That's really, 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 really good. So they surprised me a whole bunch. In the 7 games since that walk-off loss that Kimbrel took because of the runner on second on the blooper, in the 7 games since, the bullpen has gone 20 and 2/3 innings, 9 hits, 0 runs, 6 walks, 30 strikeouts. That's incredible. And that has been one of the team's biggest challenges the last few years, of not having a reliable situation all the way through the closer. So if that's fixed and the offense can surge, you can get away with giving up some runs on the mound. And so for me, it's the relievers and the bullpen.
No, that's 100% correct what you're saying, for sure. I mean, the bullpen has been more amazing than I think we've ever seen this bullpen over the past at least like 4 seasons. Yeah. So you're right, because that has been such a surprise. You know, there's so much about this team that I find fascinating. One, I don't think I've ever been this excited about a team that's 24-22, because in my opinion, I think this team is playing kind of above than what I expected them to be, especially with a pitching staff that lost Hugh Darvish, a pitching staff that lost John Lester, a offense that lost Kyle Schwarber, and you kind of weren't sure exactly like who is going to be able to step up in those roles. And then as well, you got a team that has had to fight injuries too, and they have answered the call with these role players like the Jake Marciniks and Matt Duffy's, those guys, and Jack Peterson's and all those guys. And Eric Sogard's, they have been amazing. And I have been very pleasantly surprised to see this team, in my opinion, I know they're 24-22 right now, to overachieve, to see a team that does not have a very good starting rotation. And yet they are here knocking on the door while maybe not as strong of a NL Central as we've seen in the past, but yet outproducing teams that I didn't think they'd be able to outproduce. And that includes the Brewers, and that includes the Cincinnati Reds. So for me, I'm just overall surprised by the mentality and just how this team has been ready to play. And, we've talked about this before. David Ross has not missed a beat getting this team up to play, being competitive, and just every game they're in it. Like you said, they are not getting blown out anymore like they were when we saw it in Atlanta at one point. This is a much, much better baseball team, that's for sure.
So we're going to take a break in just a second, but Ryan, I had such a fun morning today. So this is the extra innings, as our viewers know. We also do the podcast. We record it on Wednesday or Thursday, and we always bring in a special guest in this 7th inning. We're going to do a clip from that later. But my morning, I got to talk with Scott Simon. Scott Simon is the host of NPR's Weekend Edition. He's a contributor on the CBS Sunday Morning Show, which is one of my favorite shows, which all the ads are made for like 80-year-olds. So it just shows what a nerd I am about that show. He's got like 1 million Twitter followers. He's brilliant. He's a great follow and a prolific author. I've got a couple of his books. My Cubs, A Love Story is one of his books, but had a great talk with him. We're going to hear a soundbite later on in the show about that, but really looking forward to sharing the rest of that interview. I'm bummed you missed that, but it was a good interview.
No, I'm excited to hear what you had to say, and him talking about some of the great, just like memories that he has with the Cubs and growing up with, the Cubs as his favorite team. So I'm definitely looking forward to that. So yes, we're going to take a break. We're going to pay some bills, but when we come back, more of our conversation, as Chad mentioned, with some of the things going on with his team. We're going to hear from Scott Simon and maybe the newest leadoff hitter who might be there for good. We're going to get into that as well. We'll be right back on the Friendly Confines Extra Innings after this.
Look, I don't mean any disrespect. He just didn't play that well, not for a guy of his caliber.
If they don't run the ball here, I'm going to vomit. I swear to God.
I don't really have any recollection of that at all, but I guess perhaps I blacked it all out.
They won, but I'm going to be miserable all week because they stunk.
love the swag shop. I love the swag shop. I'm drinking my coffee. I keep on forgetting to bring it into the show, but I got my Friendly Confines coffee mug. Got my hat. The hat's back there. But welcome back, everybody. If you are not checking the internet right now, bottom of the seventh, White Sox up 4-1, as our producer Aldo shared with us. This is one of those rare moments that all of Cubs Nation is absolutely a White Sox fan this week, hoping that they can chip away at the Cardinals' lead. I mean, there's a really good chance the Cubs could be in first place Tuesday. Tuesday, Wednesday. That absolutely is the possibility. The way this team is playing right now. And then let me check as well. The Brewers, top of the ninth. Padres were losing 5-0. The Brewers have given up 3 runs in the top of the third, so 5-3, and the Padres are making a run. So some big games going on, even though the Cubs are having an off day.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, we do want to mention that obviously this could not be, done without the help of the Barroom Network. So we appreciate our partnership with them and Elio Gandia, who is producing tonight's webcast for us. And as you saw right before we came back from the break, go to deepdishtees.com. You can get your Friendly Confines swag. As Chad mentioned, we got coffee mugs, we got hats, we got shirts. So go out, support the podcast. If you're a listener or if you're a viewer, we got some great merchandise for you to purchase if you're interested. And that is, like I said, deepdishtees.com. So check it out if you get an opportunity. Plus, we also want to mention that our partners at Golden Rule Entertainment, they are offering big league opportunities while owning a piece of a minor league style ball club. So to find out more information about how you can become an owner of a professional baseball team, go to goldenruleentertainment.com. Be sure to check that out. And, if you know someone or you yourself are interested, great opportunity to be a baseball owner of a professional team. So that
you do the reads so well. You nail those.
Thank
Those
you.
are fantastic.
Thank you.
I'm glad those aren't on my plate. I wouldn't do very good with those. I'm
good
too
for one
verbose.
That's
too
right.
verbose. Well, let's move on to the 13th inning. And the one of the biggest question marks, especially with Nico Horner not starting the season, even though Ian Happ kind of assumed that role, was what would the Cubs do with the leadoff spot? And here we are going into the last week of May, and it feels like the Cubs have kind of figured out a kind of a surprising figure to take over that leadoff spot. So what say you, Ryan? Jock Peterson, is that going to be the leadoff hitter that the Cubs need? Is he going to be the guy down the stretch?
I don't think he's going to be the everyday guy because I still think David Ross, likes to tinker with that spot and whether it, depends on who's pitching or who's best in that lineup. But I will say this, and we mentioned this, Jock Peterson looks comfortable at the plate. He looks good. He had a nice series in St. Louis. He's been hitting the ball really, really well. So, I like it there. And he's accustomed to leading off. He did such in Los Angeles when he played with the Dodgers. So for me, listen, this would be a great problem to solve if at least David Ross can count on him, maybe 50 to 60% of the time to lead off a baseball game. And then he can kind of figure out what to do if he decides he wants to put Ian Happ at the top of the lineup or even Nico Horner for that matter, or Wilson Contreras, who we've seen. It would be a nice problem to have because having Jock leading off, Chad, of course, allows guys like Happ and Horner to hit a little lower in the lineup and give you a little more pop in the lineup at the bottom too. So, it works all the way around, but I would like to see Jock Peterson bat lead off more because it seems like he's earned that right, at least through the past 2 weeks that we've seen him play. What about you?
I think he's the guy. I really do. I think you're right that he won't be every single day because David is absolutely going to make some tweaks. Rizzo will get his leadoff spot here and there, but there's no reason why he won't be that the Jock won't be the leadoff man. If you look at his ascension in all of his statistical categories since he's been plugged into that leadoff spot, he's hitting the cover off the ball. He's making solid contact. He's not really approaching it like a leadoff guy. He's not. He worked a walk in one of the games against Cardinals. The very first pitch of Friday's game, he hits it out of the ballpark. I like his approach, and he's thriving there. a lot of players think differently when you're the leadoff guy. They think that they've got to do something a little bit different, or they got to take pitches, give the team an opportunity to see different things. Jock just gets up there and mashes. And so the matchups so far lately have been good in his favor. He's starting to really heat up. We're starting to see that power surge. But, I mean, he could conceivably, get into the 20s or 30s in home runs if he really does start heating up, and that would be fantastic from the leadoff spot. From what I'm seeing, he has a great comfort level. And again, not your prototypical leadoff guy, but he's doing the job. And since he's got into that role, this team has been surging. So I say don't tinker.
Yeah, I agree. I think that, listen, if it ain't broke, don't fix it for sure. So let's move on now to the 14th inning, Chad. And we mentioned big spot for the Cubs here this week because they have two teams that they have an opportunity to increase the potential of, gaining up more spots in the standing with going to Pittsburgh this week against the Pirates. And then they are at home against Cincinnati because the Cubs have a huge series coming up after that with the Padres, then the San Francisco Giants, and then the Padres again. So let's look at first this week because we'll clearly talk about the Padres series next week, and you're actually going to be at those games, I believe. So that'll be a nice little preview for us to save too. But, Chad, how important at this point, even though it's early in the season, do we need the Cubs to kind of stand pat at home, to continue playing as well as they are on the road, especially against the last place Pittsburgh Pirates?
Here's the thing. This has been a team that has struggled on the road. That series this weekend was on the road, and they didn't struggle. They looked great. Even in the loss, they looked fantastic. So I think something has definitely shifted here. This next stretch of games, their next off day is June 10th. So when they start up on Tuesday against the Pirates, this is a big stretch, and there's important highlights there. I'm gonna get to your question in a second, but just to say that Cincinnati game, 60% capacity at Wrigley Field for the first time. So you're going to see 3 against the Reds and 3 against the Padres, who look like world beaters. And that's where the Cubs are really probably have that circled on their calendar, say, we're going to see how we really measure up here. But that's 60% capacity at Wrigley Field. It's going to feel a little bit more normal at Wrigley. I think is fantastic. And as you mentioned it, they will end coming to San Diego, and I'm looking forward to going to all 3 games. I think we're going to do the pregame show. We're going to do the extra innings from Petco. Not you. I didn't fly you, and we didn't have budget for both of us.
Yeah.
But here's the thing about something like San Diego on your calendar, and they, that team knows they're going up against the class of the National League right now, one of the best teams. Teams can kind of overlook the ones that are in front of them. Pittsburgh is a team that the Cubs have overlooked. Pittsburgh's a team that whenever Pittsburgh plays the Cubs, they feel like it's their World Series, and they really play up to it. And that's what it seemed like so far this season. Cubs have to take care of business in the next 3 games against the Pirates. The Reds aren't giving up any. I mean, they've got a chip on their shoulder about being kind of a little brother to Chicago, and Nick has absolutely proven that he wants to destroy the Cubs every chance he gets. So yeah, it is crucial that the Cubs keep the ground they have and pick up some more ground with the 6 games against the Central, because after that, you've got 3 against the Padres, you've got 4 against the Giants, and then 3 more against the Padres. And so that you kind of hope for 50% right there, because both of those teams are over 600. Those are good teams playing great competition where they're playing the Dodgers, the Padres, and the Giants a lot. So yeah, you got to take it to them. Don't look past the Pittsburgh series, and you just got to keep winning series. That's what I've been saying. Win every series. You don't have to sweep everyone, but win every series, every chance you get.
So the good news about this series with Pittsburgh, and then even with Cincinnati, is the Cubs seem to be catching both those teams while they're not playing well right now. The Pirates and the Reds are both 3-7 in their last 10 games. And while the Cubs, last time they played in Pittsburgh, they lost 2 of 3. They did not look good in that series at all. It was early in the season. The Cubs are not the same team that they were then that they are now. We've established that. So I kind of like the Cubs' chances of sweeping this week in Pittsburgh. And then they come this, home where they have played extremely well. And I think they, have an opportunity to take 2 or 3 or sweep the Reds. I mean, it's not inconceivable to think, Chad, that after this week, the Cubs could sweep both Pittsburgh and the Reds going into that series against San Diego. And then we're talking about something, because now San Diego is really starting to get hot. And I mean, by all, I mean, looking at the Padres right now, we knew that going in this year. They're arguably a World Series contender, and they're one of the best teams, if not arguably the best team in the National League. So that's going to be great to see, especially with the Cubs getting them on the road, and the Cubs will be at Wrigley for that first 3 games before going to San Francisco and then going back to San Diego. I do find it interesting they're not playing the Dodgers on this road trip in LA, but I guess they go back to LA for another trip, so they're going to, not be on the road that long.
I like it
to their advantage.
Yeah, I like it because it splits up. Because I'll go to the Dodger games as well, out here as well. So I'm glad they split it up.
So many excuses to miss work. I feel like so that's probably
those are all night games. Those are all night games. Those aren't.
Well, drive to LA. I'm still
doing my job. So it's a final. The Brewers beat the Padres 5-3. So they are, first off, the Brewers are still good, and they're over 500, and they just took it to the Padres, and the White Sox just added on. It's now 5-1. How are you feeling if you're the Cardinals clubhouse right now? If they go in and the Cubs did what they did, the White Sox are putting a whooping to them. That's it's going to be interesting to see how that series plays out. So with that, look at that. We're actually doing much better on time. We've gotten tighter. Hopefully it's entertaining as well. But let's talk about here in the final inning here. Let's talk about the week ahead. Let's talk about the podcast that we're going to record, our normal podcast, the normal way we reach out to our listeners. I'm going to put you on the spot. I like to do this from time to time, Ryan. What is one topic that we didn't talk about today, but what's one thing you want to dive a little bit deeper into and you really think about this Cubs team, Wrigley Field getting to 60%? I mean, what are you thinking about? What's going to be a good inning topic for us to talk about this week?
Well, I think it's going to be, if we're able to talk about once the Pittsburgh series is over and then the Cubs welcome the Reds, it's going to be, Chad, the fans getting the opportunity to go back to Wrigley with that 60% capacity. I'm sure, especially when you're at Wrigley for the first time with more fans in the stands, it's going to feel like a baseball game that you're accustomed to going to. I know you went to opening day and you said it was let's say a challenging experience. I'll put it succinctly in that way, that, you didn't have the feel of a normal opening day. It was cold. There weren't a lot of fans. It's going to be beautiful weather when the Reds come to town, and you're going to have 24,000 fans in the stands to be able to get into the groove. You're going to feel that energy so much more. So for me, I'm excited to kind of rev that up and get into that a little bit more as we preview the Confines this week. What about you?
I think that's to me the biggest story that's off the field. That is absolutely the biggest story. And as a season ticket holder, what they do is we don't have access to our seats because there's at 25% capacity. There's more season ticket holders, so it's a seniority system where but you have to buy everything they offer. So this last batch was 16 games. We've not been given any games past the Padres series. So my prediction is after those 3 games against the Padres, I think they're going to bump it up. I can see us bumping up, and we might get to 100% capacity. Fenway just went to 100%. They're not asking anything in terms of vaccinations, or they're still needing masks and everything. But it's going to be so nice. My next trip into Wrigley is going to be centered around the week of July 4th, where they play the Cardinals for the weekend and then the Phillies 4-game series. So I'm looking forward to getting there and hoping that it's going to be capacity in July. It's going to be fantastic. It's going to be hot and sweaty. So I'm looking forward to that. So I think that is going to be the big story. And I hope, again, every time I get an email from the season ticket holder agent is to say, hey, we're going to bump this thing up and we actually are going to give you access to your tickets. So that's my hope, is to be providing and my tickets to my friends and using them when I'm back at the park. So what I am excited about this coming week is the interview I did earlier today with, as I mentioned, Scott Simon, who is the host of Weekend Edition on NPR. He's been doing that for years and years and years. He's a legend. He also is a contributor on CBS Sunday Morning, has written numerous books. My Cubs, A Love Story, and then Home and Away. He's a huge baseball fan. Charlie Grimm, his relation. Wow. And guess who his godfather is?
Is it? Well,
Jack?
I know who it is. Yes,
Yeah,
I'll
I
let you
said
say
it. But most people don't realize Jack Brickhouse was his godfather, and he shares some incredible stories about coming home from school. But let's play a clip from today's interview where he talks about one of his memories with Uncle Jack, as he calls him.
I had told Uncle Jack a few years ago, we were talking about Hey Hey. We were having a drink. Then I said, I've got to tell you, I met a woman in New York who said that she can tell when a man has grown up in Chicago, if at the, what I'll delicately call, even on a podcast, the highest moment of romantic fruition, they shout out, hey, hey. and Uncle Jack thought that was like the greatest gratification of his life's work that he had ever heard. And as it turned out, the last time I saw Uncle Jack was in 1998 at my stepfather's memorial service, and it turned out to be actually just 10 days before Jack himself died. I will add, forgive all these parentheticals. Yeah, his health had been tender anyway. And a few weeks before, I'd called him when he was at Northwestern Hospital because he had essentially a stroke while he was getting, why am I telling this story? He was getting dressed for Harry Carey's funeral.
Oh my gosh.
And I called him and he said, hi there. And he said, I guess I just got a little too excited dressing for Harry's funeral. And they had a delicate friendship. In any event, I like to think Harry would have said the same thing. In any event, so the last time I saw him, I didn't know it would be the last time I saw him, but it was at my stepfather's memorial service, and he was leaving, and we leaned over to hug and kiss each other, and he just held me next to him, and he whispered into my ear, "You keep saying, hey, hey, kid. You keep saying, hey, hey," which was a reference to that. Yeah. So sorry, I've gone on too much already, Chad.
No, not at all. And that's a great story. And that our listeners are going to love that.
All right. That was really cool, Chad.
Yeah.
Really cool. First of all, let me just interject for a second. A couple of things. One, I did not know that was a thing. I would maybe say I've never said that. Hey, after I've been with anyone.
Maybe you're doing it wrong, Ryan.
Maybe I'm doing it wrong. I have said "holy cow." Maybe it's just because it's a generational thing.
I wouldn't say that in the presence of a no. Just let it go. I'm gonna let it go. I wouldn't say "holy cow." Yeah.
Okay. No. So that's one. Two. I honestly did not know that Jack and Harry had what he calls a delicate friendship, which I guess he was trying to be kind by saying that maybe they did not have a very good relationship. I did not know that. And that to me is the bigger takeaway, I think, from that entire story. Did you know that at all? Because I did not know that.
I've seen bits and pieces of that, and a lot of I think could be attributed to, Jack Brickhouse is a legend in Chicago Cubs and Wrigley Field history. It doesn't say "holy cow" on the foul poles. It says, hey, that's Jack, and he's a legend. And I think there's some animosity in the way, I don't know about the personal relationship, but animosity in how Carey came in and kind of almost erased that legacy. And people, at least our generation, we don't really associate as much with Jack because we didn't grow up with him as much as Harry Carey. Another fun story that he shared, he said he would often stop by the park. And, they call up and then he'd sit and after school, the last couple innings, he'd just sit by Uncle Jack, as they did the game. And then he'd accompany Uncle Jack to a nearby tavern that he went to after every game. And he said it was a tavern that also Leo DeRocher came in. And he also mentioned as well that Jack and Leo didn't get along. And they also had a contention. Maybe Jack was just a tough guy, but
it sounds like it.
Yeah,
but that Peoria bred guy who came up. There you go.
There you go. Yeah, absolutely. So it was a great conversation. There's so many more stories to share. He is without a doubt, Scott, without a doubt, is a huge just bleed Cubby Blue Cub fan and just a brilliant guy. So many great stories. Can't wait to share more of that on Wednesday with Thursday when we drop the podcast.
Yeah, no, great get by you for that, Chad. That's fantastic. I'm looking forward to that. And we do want to mention that Chad and I are both on social media. You can see here on the screen, Chad is at the Chad Gordon on Twitter. I am at Ryan D. Lieber. Plus, go to our Facebook page. It's the Friendly Confines Chicago Cubs Facebook page. We'd love for you to join, be a part of the conversation. We also have our website, theconfines.com. It's on the bottom of the scrolling screen there. If you go there, you can subscribe to the podcast and then put in your email, and we will deliver our newest episodes right to your inbox, so you don't have to go searching for it. But of course, you can find our podcast where you get your podcasts and where they're available on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, and wherever else you may go. So please be sure to subscribe and like the podcast. And if you want to leave a review, we would appreciate that as well. So please make sure to be a part of the new Friendly Confines shows, both audio and here on our webcast as well. Chad, any last words?
Well, I always like to do it, and I really want to do it now because he's in a new setting. He had to get out of his studio. But Aldo, come up on screen. Can we get a White Sox Cardinal update from you? Because I know you absolutely are watching.
I am watching. It's 5-1 in the bottom of the 8th. You know what's funny, guys? I love the White Sox, but I actually bet on them to lose tonight. It's the only way I could get them to break this losing streak. So that's the way it works in my world. So,
of course.
I have always said, Aldo, I've said this to so many friends. I want a reverse bookie. If I could just have a guy that every time I come to them confidently, like, here you go, confidently, and then he doesn't tell me and he goes the other way,
right,
I would have 3 mansions.
That's the way to do it. Absolutely. Reverse bookie. That would be actually a good betting show on the Barroom Network.
You and I could do it because I never win a bet. I'm the worst. Which is why I don't do it. So, Aldo, how do we do? Any mistakes, any errors? Are we in violation of the FCC?
I should do that from now on, where I come in like the old, pardon the interruption. I come in and but I wouldn't really have much to do because you guys nailed it. Everything that I caught was factually correct and grammatically correct too, which is outstanding for a barroom show.
Yeah. And we appreciate your support, and obviously Peyton the intern as well here in the background also is giving me the tail wagon, saying yes, we were grammatically on target.
Hope to meet you and Peyton face to face someday.
I'd love that.
That would be cool.
We appreciate you, Aldo. This has been a delight. We're still doing this. I'm enjoying this. So next week, we haven't decided. We haven't decided if we're going to do Monday night Memorial Day or if we're going to shift it to Tuesday because of the holiday. But the week after that, we are absolutely – I've already got my camera person lined up for my part of the pregame show. We'll do it live on location. I will from Petco Park, which I'm looking forward to that like nobody's business.
Very cool. I hope you're paying your camera person well, whether that's Edgar or whoever it may be. I don't know if who that lucky person may be. Anyway, with that, once again, our thanks to Aldo Gandia, who did a great job producing this. Scott Simon, who will be our guest this week. And for Chad, I'm Ryan. Thanks for joining us here on the webcast version of the Friendly Confines Extra Innings Show. We'll see you next week, everybody. Have a good one.
We hope each and every one of you say, hey, hey, tonight.
See you at the ballpark, everybody.